The first pulse came at 3:17 a.m. A tourist helicopter circling above New York Harbor caught a flicker from the torch of the Statue of Liberty. At first it seemed like a glitch. Then another flash followed, and another, rhythmic, deliberate. The pilot, a former air traffic controller, recognized the pattern and immediately radioed it in. No response. The top of the torch had been sealed to the public for over a century. By morning, the footage was viral. News anchors speculated about lighting malfunctions or clever hoaxes. But in a darkened Manhattan apartment, Julian Vale paused the video, eyes locked on the screen. "That's not random," he muttered. "That's Morse code. An SOS." Julian Vale was once a name that echoed in financial and cybersecurity circles. He built Vale Cyphertech, a company responsible for unbreakable encryption software banned in multiple countries. Then, in 2017, he vanished after selling the company. Rumors said he'd gone mad. Others whispered of a secret project tied to government silence. He had waited years for a sign like this. The timing of the flashes was precise. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. It wasn't just a signal. It was a call. Vale contacted Riley Quinn, a rising star in investigative media. Known for her sharp wit and fearlessness, she had 1 million followers and a reputation for uncovering truths people didn't want found. He invited her to a meeting, promising proof of a buried secret tied to the Statue of Liberty and access to an archive that the government denied existed. Riley was skeptical, but intrigued. Vale's encrypted message contained coordinates, images, and fragments of documents labeled Lighthouse Project. A rabbit hole she couldn't resist. She found him in an underground compound in the East Village, surrounded by projection walls mapping electromagnetic fields across Liberty Island. One screen displayed the torch, the flashes looping endlessly. Vale's hands trembled as he explained. "My mother disappeared on Liberty Island in 1989. She was part of an engineering team inspecting internal stress points. They told me she fell, but they never found a body. I've tracked anomalies in the torch's signal for years. Last night, she used our code. That night, the island's lights failed entirely just as their private ferry docked. The torch alone remained lit, its glow cutting through the darkness like a beacon. They stepped onto Liberty Island, alone. There were no guards, no staff, no tourists, just shadows and that unblinking light." Riley pulled her coat tighter. "You sure about this?" Vale nodded, expression grim. "It's already begun." They moved silently toward the statue's base, the torch still flashing high above them in its impossible rhythm. Whatever they were about to uncover, it had waited over a century to be seen. And now, it was calling them in. The base of the statue loomed like a monolith against the dark sky, its familiar form suddenly alien under the pulsing light. Julian led Riley to a rusted service gate hidden behind stacked crates. With a custom keycard and a jolt of electricity, the gate buzzed open, revealing a narrow passageway that didn't exist on any tourist map or official blueprint. As they entered, the temperature dropped sharply. The air was thick, metallic, laced with the smell of old copper and machine oil. Their flashlights struggled to cut through the shadows, which seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. "How far down does this go?" Riley asked. Vale didn't answer. The stairwell spiraled downward in impossible geometry, deeper than the statue's foundation should allow. They passed corroded machinery labeled in languages from multiple nations: French, Russian, English, some unrecognizable. The deeper they went, the more the concrete walls shimmered faintly, like something moved just beneath the surface. At the 4th sublevel, the stairwell opened into a vast chamber. An old maintenance station stood at the center, partially collapsed. Julian knelt beside a defunct console and brushed away the dust. A tape recorder sparked to life, unpowered. A woman's voice whispered in French, reciting a sequence of numbers. "That's her," he said, trembling. Riley recorded the message, noting how the recorder had no batteries. She glanced up, The light from their flashlights flickered, as if the air itself interfered with the circuits. They heard faint footsteps echoing above, but no one else was on the island. On the far wall, a copper seal glowed faintly. 3 interlocking circles, etched into the metal, pulsed in rhythm with the torch above. Julian's pendant, a family heirloom shaped like a spiral, began to vibrate. He stepped forward and pressed it to the seal. The wall groaned and slid open. Beyond the passage was a narrow hall lined with riveted metal and exposed copper veins that pulsed like arteries. Symbols carved into the walls shifted subtly as they passed. The deeper they went, the more Riley felt an invisible pressure building around them, like the space itself resisted their presence. At the hallway's end was a chamber beneath the statue's core. In the center hovered a glass sarcophagus suspended by electromagnetic fields. Inside, a woman, perfectly preserved, breathing shallowly, with an arm-mounted device pulsing in sync with the torch's signal. Julian fell to his knees. It's her. The chamber's air thickened as they stepped closer. The sarcophagus was etched with glyphs, not ornamental but precise, mathematical. Riley's breath fogged the glass. The woman's eyes moved beneath her lids, and the device on her wrist blinked faster. Julian pressed his hand to the glass. "Mom," he whispered. Her eyes opened slowly, white, pupilless, glowing faintly. She spoke in a voice layered with echoes. "The lighthouse opens." The moment she spoke, lights flared along the walls. Ancient machinery stirred to life. A control panel rose from the floor, humming softly. Riley snapped photos, but her camera displayed nothing, every image corrupted. "This chamber shouldn't exist," she muttered. In a hidden alcove, they found a sealed journal wrapped in oilcloth. Dated 1917, its entries were signed by someone calling themselves the Light Keeper. He described maintaining the torch, not as a symbol, but as a ward. A prison light, a seal. The journal spoke of a presence trapped in the copper, a creature drawn to patterns, feeding on language and memory. It called it the Whisperer. The seal, he wrote, must never be broken. The torch must never go out. The mother had tried to reinforce the seal decades ago, and failed. The chamber shuddered. The sarcophagus hissed open. The woman gasped and bolted upright. Julian rushed to her side, but she recoiled. "The seal is weakening," she said now in English, "and it remembers me." The light from the device on her wrist began scanning the walls. The glyphs reacted, glowing in red instead of blue. Riley traced the lines on the journal and found a matching sequence etched in the statue's interior support beam. Suddenly, alarms sounded, not mechanical, biological. The sound vibrated in their bones. Riley screamed as her flashlight exploded in her hand. The shadows in the chamber twisted, forming almost hands. Julian's mother stood. "You brought the key," she told her son. "But she's the lock." The chamber trembled, and dust fell from the vaulted ceiling. The strange, shadow-like tendrils recoiled as if disturbed, retreating into the copper-lined walls. Julian helped his mother down from the sarcophagus while Riley flipped frantically through the journal for answers. Symbols flickered around them like fireflies, intelligent, shifting with each breath. A hidden passage opened behind the chamber, revealed by a resonance between the wrist device and Julian's pendant. The walls breathed, the very metal pulsing as they moved through. Copper veins snaked along the corridor, lighting dimly in reaction to their movement. Every step triggered echoes of mechanical groans, as if the statue were alive. The corridor narrowed into a vertical shaft. Riley spotted copper rungs leading upward into complete darkness. She climbed first, Julian's mother second, Julian last. The higher they went, the hotter the metal became. At one point, Riley had to pull her sleeve over her hand to avoid burning herself. They reached a secondary chamber mid-statue, one not documented in any blueprint. A low hum vibrated through the floor. At the center stood a second control panel, similar to the one below, surrounded by copper plates etched with more glyphs. The torch's pulses resonated through the chamber. Julian's mother explained through gasps. The Whisperer feeds through symbols. It reads minds, speaks through patterns. The torch was never a light. It was a prison lock, shaped in flame. Riley activated the panel. Holographic overlays appeared, displaying points of energy, structural weaknesses, and a countdown. 3 hours left. If they didn't reseal the Whisperer, its influence would escape. Julian asked, "What happens then?" His mother didn't respond. The panel requested biometric confirmation. Julian placed his hand on it. It blinked red. "Not you," said his mother. All eyes turned to Riley. The lock was bound to her now, her presence, her actions, her memory. As Riley hesitated, the glyphs across the copper began forming a face, not human, but ancient, knowing, whispering. "You've seen too much," it hissed. Riley stepped forward. "Then show me everything." The face formed by the shifting glyphs melted away as Riley placed her hand on the scanner. A surge of warmth coursed through the control panel, and a circular hatch hissed open in the chamber's rear wall. A warm copper light bled through the edges as a low hum began resonating in their bones. The air grew thick with meaning, like every breath carried the weight of unseen eyes. Beyond the hatch, a spiral staircase descended into darkness, but this time, the geometry was alien. Each step bent the light, twisted space subtly, making distances and angles unreliable. Julian guided his mother slowly, whispering reassurance, while Riley descended ahead, bracing with each disorienting turn. At the base, they entered a cathedral-like cavity inside the statue's core. Its walls were pulsing copper veins, inscribed with layers of symbols so dense they seemed to breathe. At the far end, suspended in mid-air, hovered a dark sphere. The Whisperer's prison. It rippled like liquid shadow, speaking not in words but feelings. Julian's mother gasped. "It's incomplete. It never fully sealed. That's why it's been leaking. That's why I could speak through the light." Riley approached the sphere. Her presence caused the glyphs to lift from the walls, orbiting her slowly. The Whisperer projected images into her mind, of Julian as a child, of the torch blinking through wars, disasters, and silence. The entity remembered everything. It fed on memory and buried truths. A panel rose from the floor, requiring voice authentication. Riley read aloud from the Lightkeeper's journal. The glyphs began resonating in harmony, but the sphere writhed violently. A crack formed along its surface. The Whisperer was resisting. Julian stepped forward. What if sealing it isn't enough? What if it finds another crack, another torch? His mother looked away. She had considered that, and failed. Riley remembered something from the journal, a second phase, a transference. The Whisperer didn't need destruction. It needed containment in a conscious guardian. "It needs to be bound," she whispered. The glyphs responded, encircling her completely. The sphere shuddered violently as Riley stood beneath it, encircled by glyphs orbiting her body like sentient satellites. Each symbol pulsed in sync with her breath, syncing to her rhythm, scanning her like a living script rewriting itself. She could feel the weight of history anchoring her, pulling her thoughts into visions, memories that were not hers, battles, rituals, whispers in forgotten tongues. Julian watched helplessly. His mother clung to the wall, eyes wide with recognition and fear. "It's chosen her," she whispered. "The Whisperer is not just being contained. It's merging." The chamber dimmed. The copper veins along the walls dimmed to black, then surged in crimson. The torch above pulsed with red light, a flare so intense it turned the harbor into a shadow play. The sky outside flickered like a dying signal. Emergency systems triggered across Liberty Island, but inside no alarm could reach them. Riley's voice trembled. "I see. Everything." Her eyes, glowing faintly now, reflected complex geometries only visible in that dimension of light. The glyphs spoke to her, not in language but in logic. They poured instruction into her mind, how to hold the containment, how to sustain the prison, how to sacrifice. The cost was memory, identity, and permanence. She reached toward the orb. The Whisperer lunged, forming a shape, a spire of ink twisting through the air. It struck her chest and was absorbed. Riley stumbled but remained standing. She turned toward Julian. "It's inside. I'm still me. For now." The floor beneath them cracked. Another flare from the torch triggered a collapse. They had to ascend, fast. Julian grabbed his mother. Riley moved ahead, the path lighting with her every step, as if the statue itself now responded to her presence. Copper threads retracted from the walls, revealing hidden ladders and access tunnels no human had seen in a century. As they climbed, shadows chased them, remnants of the Whisperer trying to reform. Riley's control was weakening, the fusion unstable. She clenched the journal and repeated the sealing phrases like a mantra. "Luciat et continuat. Luciat et continuat." They burst into the chamber directly beneath the torch. It was nothing like the blueprints, a sanctuary of containment shaped like an eye, with a throne-like pedestal in its center. Riley stepped into it. The glyphs surged, locking her in place. Her voice echoed. "Seal the beacon. I hold the breach." The chamber beneath the torch convulsed with energy as Riley stepped fully into the containment pedestal. Tendrils of copper filament slithered around her arms, spine, and ankles, binding her to the structure with a precision that felt ritualistic rather than mechanical. Her skin shimmered with glyphs, shifting patterns that moved like living tattoos, synchronizing with the heartbeat of the statue itself. Above them, the Statue of Liberty's torch erupted in a vertical column of red flame, casting distorted shadows across the skyline of Manhattan. The harbor's waters boiled in unnatural concentric circles. Across the city, lights flickered and died, communications failed, and a silent unease gripped the people below. The torch's signal was no longer just light. It was a warning, a global call written in forgotten frequency. Julian shielded his mother as the chamber quaked. She clutched the journal to her chest, reciting runes in guttural tones that vibrated through the copper walls like sonar. "The glyphs are active," she muttered, her voice cracking. "She's stabilizing the breach, but the Whisperer, it's trying to divide. It wants to escape in fragments scattered through minds." Hovering slightly above the pedestal, Riley was no longer entirely herself. Her eyes rolled back, glowing white. Her voice emerged as a chorus of overlapping languages, some recognizable, others long extinct. "Through memory we seal. Through blood we bind. Through witness we endure." Each syllable reverberated across the chamber, resonating with the glyphs etched into the statue's copper bones. Without warning, the floor beneath Julian fractured. He fell, catching a frayed length of cabling that sparked with every sway. His mother cried out, but it was Riley who extended her arm. A stream of energy leapt from her palm, encasing Julian in a sphere of stabilizing light, lifting him back onto solid ground. But the effort drained her. A sliver of shadow peeled away from her shoulder, the Whisperer trying to flee. "It's escaping," she gasped, collapsing. Her body phased in and out like a corrupted signal. "I can't contain all of it, it's too vast. Too many minds. I need another vessel, a second anchor to balance the weight." Her voice trembled with exhaustion, and behind her the torch dimmed slightly, as if hesitating. Julian stepped toward her, defiance in his gaze. "Then we'll carry it together." He pressed his hand onto the pedestal, glyphs leaping from Riley to him like threads of lightning. They entwined, binding his life force to hers. His mother screamed, stepping back. "No, The system wasn't meant for two, it'll erase you both. Riley met Julian's eyes, tears slipping silently. If we vanish, but the Whisperer stays sealed, that's a victory. Together they nodded and stood firm. The glyphs exploded in light, enveloping them. A final pulse surged through the torch, and then darkness. The flame died. Silence returned. Silence hung over Liberty Island like a final breath. The torch no longer glowed, and the air itself felt heavier, as if something vast and unseen had exhaled its last into the copper bones of the statue. Tourists had been evacuated. Security tape flapped in the ocean wind. Helicopters circled but refused to descend. Something had changed, and everyone felt it, even if they couldn't name it. Beneath the statue, the containment pedestal stood empty. No trace of Riley or Julian remained. The glyphs along the walls had darkened, fossilized into cold metal. Yet every so often, a flicker of light pulsed across a single copper plate. A heartbeat, perhaps. The island was sealed off by the government, now branded a hazard site pending structural instability. But those who had been there that night spoke in whispers, their eyes haunted by something they couldn't explain. In the days that followed, the world moved on. Headlines speculated wildly. Solar flares, electromagnetic storms, secret weapons tests. But none could explain the synchronized hallucinations across the harbor or the collective blackout of surveillance systems. Riley's online accounts were deactivated. Julian's name disappeared from digital records. It was as if they had never existed. And yet, anomalies persisted. Visitors to Liberty Island claimed to hear faint whispers in different languages when standing near the base of the statue. Photographs taken near the pedestal occasionally revealed two faint silhouettes in the torch's frame, standing hand in hand. One even captured a third figure watching from the shoreline. At the Ellis Island Museum, an artifact mysteriously appeared overnight, a spiral-shaped copper pendant glowing faintly under glass. Its plaque simply read, "Recovered, unknown donor." No one could explain how it had bypassed security. Children reported hearing music when they stood near it, a melody with no identifiable source. In a hidden forum on the dark web, a scrambled video was uploaded weeks later. Grainy footage showed Riley in a dimly lit room, her eyes flickering with glyph light. If you're seeing this, the Whisperer is not gone. It's dreaming, and dreams have gravity. The final seconds of the video showed the torch, briefly reignited with a white flame before the screen went black. A single line of Morse code blinked in the darkness. Awaken. No IP address traced, no source identified. But the signal began repeating. And far across the ocean, in Antarctica, a red light blinked atop an abandoned research tower. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. The torch had gone dark, but its message had traveled. Liberty was never just a symbol. It was a seal, and something is listening.